Thank you all for joining us. It is May already, my favorite month of the year, and it's 2025, and I'm really excited to share with you some updates and some really encouraging news. So I'd like to share with you a video that I created. It's just 30 seconds long, and this has been really helpful in getting more co-sponsors.
Congressman Donald Payne Jr. believed in saving lives. When he learned about the End Kidney Deaths Act, he knew it could help end the kidney shortage and he was ready to lead. But 1 year ago, in April 2024, Congressman Payne died waiting for a kidney. Let's honor Representative Payne's legacy by ending the kidney shortage. This bill can save 100,000 American lives and billions in taxpayer dollars over the next decade. Let's finish what Congressman Payne wanted. Please co-sponsor the End Kidney Deaths Act.
And this demonstrates to Congress that they too are vulnerable to the kidney shortage. So this is just one example of an email that I received from Representative Carson's office saying that Representative Payne was the inspiration, and working with him on the infrastructure committee was very an honor. So after that, Representative Carson co-sponsored the legislation. So it was effective.
Good.
How many community members have written to their House leaders? I put the call out twice for people to write to everyone. Only 75 so far, and that's just simply not enough. Listen, I used to teach middle school. You can't just ask once. You got to ask again and again and again until you get the result that you want. Now, when people write to their congressional leaders, they often receive back a form letter or no response at all. So when you get back the form letter that's not about the End Kidney Deaths Act, write a second letter indicating, yes, you read what they sent, but it was not relevant to what you asked for. You would like an email back that is related to the End Kidney Deaths Act, and or the no response. So for example, I wrote to Representative Esbiat, my representative, and so did another constituent, saying, hey, you don't even write back to us to indicate, we click the button that says we'd like to hear from you. There's not even a message that you received our message. And you've got to help us get this bill to the finish line. This is something that just rolls around my head all day long as I'm speaking to congressional members. If saving lives and saving taxpayer dollars isn't a priority, it really does beg the question, why be in Congress at all? That's a mystery. Like, if those two things don't appeal to you, what does appeal to you, right? Why are you there? So that's what I want to say. It's not something that we should say, but I'm just sort of letting you know what's in my mind. I'm very proud and delighted that we have 37 supportive organizations. This is the list. And today I wrote letters out to certain leaders in the House, and I included this list in my email so that they know we are very widely supported by a lot of grassroots organizations. Now, as I've spoken to you many times before, the big organizations are not in support of the End Kidney Deaths Act. And I would call this sort of the trendy way to speak about it, corporate capture, where they are more beholden to their revenue stream than they are to their constituents and saving their constituents' lives. So I made this chart just to show you in clear, with some clarity, that these organizations are taking in millions of dollars every year. So we've got the AAKP with 2.7 million. And over a quarter of that comes from corporate contributors. The National Kidney Foundation doesn't release their percentages, but they're taking in nearly 50 million. The American Kidney Fund, an astonishing 350 million, most of that coming from dialysis companies, around 250 million of that. AST, 6.2 million, ASTS, 11.5 million, and the AMA, nearly 450 million. Most of these millions are coming from people who are benefiting from the status quo. And we know we're going to be saving $37 billion once the End Kidney Deaths Act passes and we reach the 10th year. Some of that money is coming from, perhaps some contributors to these organizations. And perhaps that's why they're so reluctant to help us out. And honestly, I don't need their help. I just don't want them to be in the way. And that is my fear, is that they're getting in the way, because I've already had reports back, and I've shared this with you in the past, from congressional offices stating that some of their lobbyists are talking them out of supporting the End Kidney Deaths Act.
Oh my God.
So this is just an example of some evidence of where the corporation comes before the constituents. And this is an American Kidney Fund. So that they were getting money from DaVita and Fresenius, the two big dialysis companies, and they were violating kickback rules while doing that. They were accused of doing that. There's also a group of legislators in Congress called the Congressional Kidney Caucus. And this is an example of how the Congressional Kidney Caucus is being mentioned in my communications. We're going to continue to defer to the Kidney Caucus on this, but we'll let you know. So they're waiting for the Kidney Caucus to make a statement. And the Kidney Caucus is closely aligned with the National Kidney Foundation, the American Kidney Fund, and the AAKP. So I would rather the Kidney Caucus stay silent because I'm afraid that if they do speak out, they may speak against our legislation. So this is all very strange territory to be in, but silence is better than opposition. Now, I came across this during this past month. I just wanted to share it with you because it's sort of almost like doublespeak, right? The NKF is working, I'm going to the second sentence, to increase the number of people recommended for testing, as well as double living and deceased donations while reducing access disparities. How are you going to double donations when we haven't had an increase in the number of living kidney donations in the last 25 years? And the NKF's primary legislative goal is to pass the Living Donor Protection Act, which will not increase the number of lives saved at all. So there's just a lot of strange communication going on, and they are, very resistant to the End Kidney Deaths Act, which will more than double living donations. Our main goal right now is to get the End Kidney Deaths Act into the Ways and Means tax reconciliation package. Half the time, roughly, legislation passes in packages. So things are tucked in this giant package. And half the time, bills pass as standalone bills. So it's not to say that if we don't get in the tax package that this bill won't pass. On the contrary, we will then try to pass it as a standalone bill. I don't think there's going to be another tax package this year. And so we will then work on the standalone, but it's so much easier if we could get into the package. So that's what we're aiming for.
Okay.
Now, among the Ways and Means Committee members, we have constituents with all members except for these members. So if you know anyone that lives in these districts, please send them my way. One of the strategies has been to contact constituents of Ways and Means Committee members and have them submit op-eds to local newspapers, because as we know, all politics is local, and these local articles are read by voters. And then we can share them with the representative to say, hey, support the End Kidney Deaths Act. This is what your voters want. So very fortunately, we've had 3 published so far. Representative Neal is a key player. He's the minority leader of the Ways and Means Committee. We had another article written to Representative Judy Chu, who's from California, a great article asking her to support the legislation in the local newspaper. And this one was about Representative Schweikertz from Arizona and asking him to do the same. One is coming out, and a fourth one is coming out about Representative Smucker from Pennsylvania on Sunday. And we have others that are on deck that are going to be printed soon. Now, the idea of these op-eds, I think, is a great one. And so what we're going to do is we're going to ask everyone, if you feel like writing an op-ed, actually, you don't have to do most of the writing. My son, AB, is able to handle a lot of the writing. And so all we need is the yes from you. And that brings up another great piece of news. And that is we have a new communications intern. She's a brilliant high school senior who's been active in the donation space for years. I've known her for several years now. She's really, really a terrific person. Grace is her name, Grace Zhu. And she's going to be going to Georgetown in the fall. I'm so proud of her. Anyway, Grace is coordinating this op-ed project. So if you want to be a part of it, please let us know, and I'll put it in the follow-up email. I think it's an excellent way to advocate. Now, speaking of advocacy, we did have the, it's not written, it is. Okay, this was written in the New York Post. I know it's small, but I just submitted an op-ed to them because they did write this up. And they were talking about Sally Sattel's article that I'll share with you in a moment. This is gigantic. We have in the Chicago Tribune just about a week ago, Stephen Levitt from Freakonomics and Ruby Rorty from Project Donor. That's the University of Chicago institution that Stephen Levitt founded, the RISK program that helps people who are smokers or have weight issues to get fit enough to become organ donors. So the two of them came together in the Chicago Tribune and wrote a beautiful op-ed. And that's, I think, going a long way, because I think Stephen Levitt is a person who is admired on both sides of the aisle. And this is Sally Satel's article. Sally is a two-time recipient. She has written a book called Altruism is Not Enough. She's a longtime advocate for compensation. She's absolutely superb. And this article really was amazing. So I will send that to you after the meeting. Unfortunately, this person in the National Review wrote an article in opposition to Sally's article. Almost immediately it came out, but it was not a very effective article. And on all of these articles, or actually not the Chicago Tribune, but the others, there are spaces for comments. And I think that commenting is crucial. So I've been very active in commenting because there are so many misconceptions. For example, sometimes people talk about dialysis like it's like going to the hairdresser, you know? It's no big deal. And there's just a lot of education that's needed, because so much opposition to the End Kidney Death Act is based on misunderstandings about the nature of donation, right? So I think if you can get in there, if you have the time and the patience to go in and write positive comments, that's important. Some of the time you do have to join or subscribe in order to do that, but it's something I think that is helpful. I've shared this with you in the past, but I just wanted you to be aware of it, and that this is a really worthwhile program created by Philip Held and Frank McCormick at the University of Chicago. We're really seeking out national news connections. I'm going to ask everybody to go to this website on Fox News and ask them to do a story about the End Kidney Death Act. I think we can get a lot of positive attention from doing that, and so that's something that we'll do after my presentation is over. Another idea that was presented to me was for me to go on Joe Rogan. Obviously, he's super influential and it's very hard to get on that podcast, but I'm going to ask people who are interested in advocating for this to try to suggest to him on social media that this is a great topic to speak about. If there are town halls in your region, or there are other events where you can speak directly with representatives about the End Kidney Death Act, of course, that is a great way to help. I've spoken about them in the past. Next Step, Next One is a project to encourage people to become donors, and they are really doing a great job at covering the End Kidney Death Act. One thing they've done, and I will share this in my follow-up notes, is they've created this little website.
People get paid for all different types of things, so why not for donating a kidney?
I think people, before presenting arguments in opposition to compensating donors, need to pause and reflect and say, if I am successful in arguing against the End Kidney Death Act, 100,000 Americans will die. What is really a preventable death?
What it does is it raises awareness to the issue. It will bring more people into the fold. It's a tax credit. It will be paid 6 to 12 months after donation, and then it's $10,000 a year for 5 years. So it's not an instant windfall.
Is it ethical to pay people for the work of kidney donation? Yes, it is as ethical as it is to pay a firefighter for saving the lives of a stranger, to pay a police officer for putting themselves at a level of risk in order to save the life of a person who is in need.
It makes it a lot easier for them to make the decision.
So we provide compensation for people to save the lives of those they don't know.
If we can effectuate those numbers and bring the dialysis numbers down and the donor pool up, well, then it's a win for everybody.
Our day-to-day action plan as a community, working on placing more local op-eds. And once again, we will write them for you. You can then edit them and sign off on them, and then we'll get them submitted. And trying to get more than 37 organizations to be in favor of us. If you know an organization, large or small, you think might want to come aboard, please put them in touch with me. And of course, writing to your own House representatives until they decide to co-sponsor, right? Just keep going after that prize, which is co-sponsorship. Asking one time is unfortunately not enough. Our next meeting is June 3rd at 5 p.m. And thank you so much for listening.